Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, staring at the massive display screen that showed empty space. But she knew it would not stay empty for long. The warning signals had been coming in for hours. Something big was heading toward their small colony in the Kepler 442 system. Sarah was 35 years old and had spent most of her life in space. She had short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The colonists trusted her to keep them safe, and she took that job seriously. 0 people lived on the planet below, trying to build a new home far from Earth. "Captain, we're getting something on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Martinez from his station. His voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the worry underneath. "Put it on screen," Sarah ordered. The display changed, showing hundreds of red dots moving toward them. No, not hundreds, Sarah counted quickly. In her head, there were over 1,000 ships coming their way. Each dot represented a vessel much larger than anything in her small fleet. "My God," whispered Dr. Patel from the science station. "I've never seen so many ships in one place." Sarah had 12 ships to defend the colony. 12. The enemy had 1,000. The math was simple and terrifying, but Sarah had learned long ago that math did not always tell the whole story in a fight. "Open a channel," she said calmly. "Let's see what they want." The screen flickered, then showed the bridge of an alien ship. The creature sitting in the command chair was unlike anything Sarah had seen before. It had 4 arms, green scaly skin, and yellow eyes that seemed to glow. When it spoke, its voice was deep and rough. "I am General Vexar of the Zapirian hegemony," the alien said. "You will surrender your ships and your colony immediately. Resist and we will destroy everything you have built here." Sarah looked at the alien general for a long moment. Around her, the bridge crew waited to hear what she would say. She could feel their fear, but also their trust in her. "I see," Sarah said finally. "And how many soldiers do you have?" General Vexar's eyes seemed to shine brighter. 1,000,000 soldiers across 1,000 ships. Your 12 little vessels cannot hope to stand against such power. Surrender now and your people will be allowed to live as slaves, refuse, and they will all die. Sarah nodded slowly, as if thinking hard about the offer. Behind the general, she could see other aliens watching from their stations. They all looked confident, sure that the humans would give up without a fight. 1,000,000 soldiers, Sarah repeated. "That's impressive, General." "Yes," Vexar hissed. "More than enough to crush any resistance you might offer. Your weapons are primitive, your ships are small and weak. You have no chance." Sarah smiled then, and something in her expression made the alien general lean forward in his chair. "You're right about one thing, General," she said. 1,000,000 soldiers is a lot. Her smile grew wider. "But from where I'm sitting, that looks like 1,000,000 targets to me." The alien general's forearms tensed around him. His officers looked confused. This was not the response they had expected from the human. "You dare to threaten the hegemony," Vexar growled. "Your 12 ships against our 1,000. You are either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe both," Sarah admitted, "but I've been studying your people for months, General. Every battle record we could get our hands on, every tactical report. And I've noticed something interesting about how you fight." "And what is that?" the general asked, his voice now cold and dangerous. "You always win the same way. Overwhelming force. Show up with More ships than the enemy can handle. And they surrender before the real fighting starts. It's worked for you for hundreds of years. Because it is the smart way to fight. Vexar said, why waste resources when victory can be achieved through superior numbers? Exactly, Sarah said, but you know what? You've never fought humans before. The general's yellow eyes narrowed. What difference could that make? Flesh is flesh, metal is metal, numbers are numbers. See, that's where you're wrong. Sarah said, numbers only matter if both sides are playing by the same rules, but humans have this annoying habit of changing the rules in the middle of the game. The alien officers on the screen began talking among themselves in their own language. Sarah could not understand the words, but she could read the worry on their faces. You speak in riddles. The general said, state your decision clearly. Will you surrender or will you force us to destroy you? Sarah stood up from her captain's chair and walked closer to the screen. When she spoke, again her voice was quiet but firm. General Vexar, I want you to remember this moment. Remember how confident you feel right now. Remember how certain you are that your million soldiers will win. Because in a few hours, when this is all over, I want you to think about what went wrong. The general's scale seemed to darken. You are making a grave mistake, human. My patience has limits, so does mine. Sarah replied, you came here expecting us to roll over and play dead. You thought we would be so scared of your numbers that we would give up without a fight. But here's the thing about humans, General, we don't scare easily. And we really, really hate bullets. Your courage will not save you when my ships reduce your world to ash. Maybe not, Sarah said. But courage has a funny way of making smart people do impossible things. You should keep that in mind. General Vexiter's 4 hands gripped the arms of his chair. This is your last chance. Surrender now or face complete annihilation. Sarah looked at him for a long moment, then smiled one more time. General, got 50,000 people counting on me to keep them safe. 12 ships against your 1,000. 1 million soldiers pointed at my home. She paused. You're right. The odds are pretty bad for you. The screen went black as the connection ended. Around the bridge, Sarah's crew stared at their captain. Finally, Lieutenant Martinez spoke up. Captain, what's the plan? Sarah turned to look out at the stars where 1,000 enemy ships were getting closer every minute. The plan, Lieutenant, is to show these aliens why humans don't stay conquered. General Vexiter stared at the blank screen where the human captain had been moments before. Around him, his officers waited for orders. The general's 4 hands slowly released their grip on his chair. Did she just threaten us? Asked Commander Z, his second in command, the younger Zethurian. Scales were bright green, showing his confusion. Impossible, Vexar growled. 12 ships against 1,000. They are either insane or bluffing. He turned to his tactical officer. How long until we reach their position? 3 hours at current speed, General. Good. Deploy the fleet in standard conquest formation. I want every ship in perfect position. When those humans see our full power, they will realize their mistake. On the main screen, the Zephyrian fleet spread out across space like a giant wall of metal and death. Each ship was 3 times larger than the biggest human vessel. Their hulls gleamed with the dark metal that made Zahirian armor so strong. Weapon ports glowed with energy, ready to fire. The formation was beautiful and Terrifying, Vexar had used it to conquer 47 different worlds. No enemy had ever stood against it for more than an hour. Meanwhile, on the Defiance, Captain Chen watched the enemy fleet approach. Her crew was busy at their stations, but she could feel the tension in the air. "They're coming in standard formation," reported Lieutenant Martinez, "just like in the battle records we studied." "Perfect," Sarah said quietly. "Signal the other ships. Begin withdrawal to the asteroid field." "The asteroid field, Dr. Patel looked up from her station. "Captain, that's not exactly the best place for a space battle. Depends on what kind of battle you're planning," Sarah replied with a small smile. The 12 human ships began moving away from the Zarian fleet. To anyone watching, it looked like they were running in fear. The vessels moved quickly toward a large field of asteroids that circled the outer edge of the star system. On the Zephyrian flagship, officers cheered as they watched the humans retreat. "Look at them run," laughed Commander Z. "I told you they were bluffing." But General Vexeter frowned as he studied the tactical display. Something felt wrong. The human captain had been too calm, too confident in his long career. He had learned to trust his instincts. "Why the asteroid field?" he muttered to himself. "General," Commander X heard him. "Nothing. Continue the advance, but tell all ships to be ready for anything." As the hours passed, the human fleet reached the asteroid field and disappeared among the floating rocks. The asteroids were huge, some as large as small moons. They provided perfect cover for ships trying to hide. Zephyrian fleet followed, still in their perfect formation. The general had to admit the humans had chosen their hiding place. Well, the asteroids would make targeting difficult. General called the tactical officer. "We're receiving a transmission from the human ships." "Put it through, Captain." Chen's face appeared on the screen. Again, she was standing on her bridge, looking calm and ready. "General Vexar, I wanted to talk before we begin. I have a question for you." "More threats?" the general asked. "Just curiosity in all your battles. Has anyone ever made you change your tactics?" Vexar considered the question. "Why would they? Superior numbers and overwhelming force always win. It is the natural order." "See, that's what I thought you'd say. Your people have been using the same strategy for centuries. Same formation, same approach, same result. It must get boring after a while." "Victory is never boring," the general replied, "but victory against the same kind of enemy, fighting the same way every time, that's not really a test of skill, is it?" The alien officers looked at each other. The human was talking like she had already won the battle. "You speak as if you know something we do not," Vexar said carefully. "Maybe I do. Tell me, General, what do you know about human history?" "Very little. You are a young species, barely out of your home system." Sarah nodded. "True. But we've been fighting wars on our planet for thousands of years against each other, and you know what we learned? What? The side with more soldiers doesn't always win. Sometimes the side with better ideas wins. Sometimes the side that can adapt faster wins, and sometimes the side that's fighting for something important wins." General Vexar's scales darkened. This human was beginning to annoy him. "Ideas do not stop plasma cannons," he said. "No, but they can make plasma cannons miss their targets or hit the wrong targets or never get the chance to fire at all." "Enough games, Vexar. Growled, come out and fight or watch your colony burn. Oh, we'll fight, Sarah said, but not the way you expect. See, you've been conquering people who fight like you do. Line up their ships, match your numbers against theirs. Winner takes all. But humans learned a long time ago that there are other ways to fight, such as Sarah's smile returned. Ever heard the story of David and Goliath? General, before Vexar could answer, the transmission cut off again. The general sat in silence for a moment, thinking. Around him, his officers waited for orders. The asteroid field loomed ahead, full of hiding places and shadows. Sir, Commander Zex asked quietly. Proceed with the attack, Vexar said. Finally, but tell all ships to be extra careful. Something about this feels wrong. The Zephyrian fleet entered the asteroid field, maintaining their perfect formation. Their sensors swept the area, looking for the hidden human ships. The rocks were large and numerous, creating a maze of hiding spots. Contact, shouted the sensor. Officer, I'm reading human ships scattered throughout the field. How many? All 12, sir. They're spread out, moving independently. Vexar studied the tactical display. The human ships were not staying together. Instead, they had split up and were moving in different directions among the asteroids. It was not a formation he recognized. What are they doing? Commander Z asked. I don't know, the general admitted. But we have them outnumbered by more than 80 to 1. It doesn't matter what tricks they try. But even as he spoke the words, General Vexar felt a cold chill run down his spine. The human captain had been too confident, too calm, and now her ships were moving in patterns that made no sense unless they were not really trying to fight a traditional space battle at all. General, the tactical officer called out suddenly, I'm detecting some kind of activity on several asteroids. Energy readings, movement. I can't tell what they're doing. Vexeter leaned forward in his chair. Show me. The screen displayed several large asteroids scattered throughout the field. Each one was showing signs of unusual activity. Small energy signatures like mining equipment or construction tools. What could they be building out there? Commander Z wondered. General Vexar suddenly felt very uncomfortable. He had spent his whole career fighting enemies who followed the rules, but this human captain had already made it clear she didn't care about rules. All ships, he ordered, prepare for immediate combat. I don't like this. In the distance, hidden among the asteroids, Captain Chen smiled as she watched the Zahirian fleet enter her trap. The Zephyrian fleet moved deeper into the asteroid field, their massive ships gliding between the floating rocks like giants walking through a forest. General Vexar watched the tactical display, counting the distances between his vessels. Perfect formation, just as it should be. All ships report ready for combat, Commander Z announced. Weapons charge, shields at maximum. Good, Vexar replied. Begin targeting the human vessels. I want this over quickly. Suddenly, every screen on the bridge lit up with warning signals. Red lights flashed throughout the ship as the computer systems detected something wrong. General, shouted the sensor officer, his voice high with panic. The asteroids, they're all showing massive energy spikes. Vexar spun around in his chair. What kind of energy? Before anyone could answer, the first asteroid exploded, but it wasn't a normal explosion. Instead of flying apart in all directions, the asteroid burst outward like a giant Shotgun shell, millions of rock fragments, each the size of a small vehicle, shot out and carefully aimed. Directions. They had been accelerated to incredible speeds, turning them into deadly projectiles. The fragments slammed into the Zephyrian ships with devastating force. The aliens had arranged their fleet in tight formation, each vessel close to the others for maximum intimidation. Now that formation became a death trap. Shields down on the destroyer, someone screamed over the communication system. The Victory is reporting hull breaches. Conquest has lost main engines. General Vexter watched in horror as his perfect fleet began to fall apart. The rock fragments were moving too fast for his ships to dodge. Their energy shields, designed to stop plasma weapons in laser beams, did almost nothing against simple chunks of rock moving at incredible speeds. Another asteroid exploded, then another. Each one sent millions of projectiles flying through the Zephyrian formation. Ships that had seemed unstoppable moments before were now spinning helplessly, their hulls torn open, their weapons offline. How is this possible? Commander Zex gasped, staring at the destruction. Captain Chen's voice came over the communication channels, calm and clear. It's called kinetic bombardment. General, we learned about it from studying meteors that hit planets. Simple physics, really. Take a rock, accelerate it to high speed, and it becomes a weapon more powerful than any bomb. On the main screen, Vexar could see more asteroids preparing to explode. His fleet, stretched out in perfect military formation, was trapped right in the middle of the field. The humans, he whispered. They turned the asteroids into weapons. Sir, we need to break formation, Commander Z urged. Get the ship spread out. Do it, Vexar ordered. All vessels, emergency scatter. Break formation now. But it was too late. The human captain had planned this perfectly. As the Zephyrian ships tried to change direction and spread out, more asteroids exploded around them. The fragments created a web of destruction that caught the alien vessels no matter which way they turned. This is impossible, Vexar roared. How did they know exactly where to place their weapons? Captain Chen's voice answered him as if she had heard the question. Because you always use the same formation, General, always the same spacing between ships. We studied every battle you've ever fought. You're very predictable when you think you're winning. The general's four hands gripped his chair so hard his claws dug into the metal around him. His bridge crew struggled to deal with damage. Reports coming from across the fleet. Domination is dead in space. Terror has lost life support. Annihilation is requesting immediate evacuation. Ship after ship reported critical damage. The Zephyrian fleet, which had seemed so powerful just minutes before, was being torn apart by flying rocks. General, the communication officer called out, his voice shaking, I'm getting reports that some of our ships are colliding with each other. Vexeter looked at the tactical display and saw the truth. His ships, trying desperately to escape the asteroid bombardment, were crashing into each other. The tight formation that was supposed to show their strength had become their weakness. How many ships have we lost? He asked quietly. Sir, Commander Z checked his reports. Over 300 are destroyed or disabled, and the bombardment is still continuing. 300 ships, nearly a third of his fleet, gone in less than 20 minutes. Vexar had been fighting wars for 2 centuries. and he had never seen anything like this. The humans only have 12 ships. He said to himself, 12 ships did this. To us, another wave of asteroids exploded, sending fresh waves of destruction through his fleet. The general realized with growing horror that each explosion was perfectly timed. The humans had planned not just where to place their weapons, but exactly when to trigger them for maximum damage. Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the human captain, the communication officer reported. Put her on screen, Vexar ordered, his voice hollow. Captain Chen appeared on the display, still standing calmly on her bridge. Behind her, the general could see her crew working at their stations, monitoring the battle. General, I hope you're beginning to understand something important, she said. Your million soldiers were indeed impressive, but they're all packed into ships that are flying in exactly the places I wanted them to fly. You used our own tactics against us, Vexar said, his voice filled with disbelief. I used your predictability against you, Chen corrected. You've been winning battles the same way for so long, you forgot that other people might be paying attention. The general looked at his tactical display. More than half his fleet was now damaged or destroyed. The remaining ships were scattered and confused, trying to avoid the continuing bombardment. But how, he asked. How did you prepare all of this? We only arrived a few hours ago. Sarah smiled grimly. We've been preparing for months, General, ever since we detected your first scout ships. We knew you were coming, and we knew how you would attack, so we got ready by turning asteroids into weapons, by turning your advantages into disadvantages, your tight formations, your predictable tactics, your overwhelming numbers. We made all of that work for us instead of for you. Vexeter felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Not just fear of losing a battle, but fear of facing an enemy who thought in completely different ways than he did. This isn't over, he said, trying to sound confident. We still have more ships than you do. Yes, you do, Chen agreed, but now they're scattered, confused and scared, and my 12 ships are about to show you what humans do best, which is. Captain Chen's smile turned cold. We adapt, we improvise, and we never ever give up. The transmission ended, leaving General Vexeter staring at a blank screen while his fleet burned around him. For the first time in his long military career, he was not sure he could win this battle, and that terrified him more than any weapon ever could. General Vexter stood among the wreckage of his once proud fleet, trying to salvage what he could from the disaster. Half his ships were gone, destroyed by flying rocks from exploding asteroids. The other half were scattered across the asteroid field, their perfect formation broken. All ships he commanded over the communication channels abandon formation tactics. Hunt the human vessels individually. Use your speed and firepower advantages. It was a desperate move, but Vexar was a veteran commander. He had survived 2 centuries of warfare by learning to adapt when things went wrong. His ships were still larger and more powerful than the human vessels. In single combat, Zirian technology should win easily. Commander X looked worried. Sir, our communication network is badly damaged. Many ships can't receive orders clearly. Then they'll have to think for themselves, Vexar growled. Tell them to pursue and destroy any human ship they can find. Across the asteroid field, Zaffirin. Vessels began moving toward the locations where human ships had been spotted. The aliens were angry now, eager for revenge after the devastating surprise attack. Captain Chen watched from the bridge of the Defiance as enemy ships approached. Her position, around her the crew worked calmly at their stations. 3 Zephyrian cruisers coming our way, reported Lieutenant Martinez. They're moving fast. Good, Sarah said. Quietly, signal the Courage and the Hope execute trap pattern 7, Dr. Patel looked up from her station. Captain, shouldn't we be trying to run from 3 cruisers? Why run when you can lead them exactly where you want them to go? Sarah replied with a small smile. The Defiance began moving deeper into the asteroid field with the 2 other human ships following behind. 2 The pursuing Zappirans, it looked like the humans were fleeing in panic. The alien ships followed eagerly, their powerful weapons charging for the kill. They had the speed advantage and were slowly closing the distance. Almost there, Sarah said, watching her navigation display carefully. Now 3 human ships suddenly changed direction, diving behind a cluster of large asteroids. The Zephyrian pursuers followed without hesitation, desperate to finish off their prey. They flew directly into another trap, but this time, instead of exploding asteroids, the humans had prepared something different. As the alien ships passed through a narrow gap between 2 large rocks, invisible electromagnetic pulse mines activated. The EMP blast shut down every electronic system on the Zaffirin cruisers. Their engines stopped, their weapons went offline, their life support systems failed. The mighty warships became helpless chunks of metal drifting through space. Now Captain Chen ordered the human ships emerged from behind their hiding places and opened fire with precisely aimed kinetic weapons, but they didn't try to destroy the alien vessels. Instead, they targeted specific parts of each ship: engines, weapons, communication arrays. Within minutes, the 3 Zephyrian cruisers were completely disabled but still intact. Their crews were alive but powerless. This is the human ship Defiance, Sarah broadcast to the disabled vessels. Your ships are neutralized. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to human military law. Similar scenes were playing out across the asteroid field. Every time a group of Zephyrian ships found human vessels, they were led into carefully prepared ambushes. The humans seemed to know exactly where the aliens would go and what they would do. On the Zephyrian flagship, General Vexar watched his fleet disappear ship by ship. How are they doing this? He demanded. Our ships are faster and stronger, sir, the tactical officer replied nervously. It appears the humans are using the asteroid field itself as a weapon. They've prepared multiple trap zones throughout the area, but how did they know where our ships would go, Commander? Zex pulled up battle recordings on his screen. General, look at this. Every time one of our ships pursues a human vessel, the human leads them through the same type of path, between large asteroids, through narrow passages, around blind corners. Vexar studied the recordings and slowly began to understand. They're herding us like animals. Yes, sir, and every path leads to a trap. The general's forearms clenched into fists. The humans weren't just fighting his fleet, they were controlling it. Every move his ships made was exactly what the enemy wanted. Sir, there's something else. The communication officer called out. We're having trouble coordinating our remaining ships. The command network keeps breaking down. What do you mean? Every time we set up a relay point to restore communications, the humans seem to target it specifically. They know exactly which ships to hit to disrupt our entire network. Vexar felt a cold chill run through his body. The humans weren't just winning random battles. They were systematically dismantling his fleet's ability to work together. General Commander Z said quietly, I'm beginning to think these humans understand our tactics better than we do. On the Defiance, Captain Chen was having a very different conversation with her crew. The Zephyrians are having trouble adapting, Dr. Patel observed. Their ships keep making the same mistakes. That's because they're trained to follow orders from above, Sarah explained. When their command structure breaks down, they don't know how to think for themselves. Lieutenant Martinez nodded. But our crews can adapt in real time. Each ship can make its own decisions based on what it sees exactly while they're waiting for orders that may never come. We're already moving on to the next phase of the battle. Sarah looked at her tactical display, which showed the positions of all remaining ships in the battle. The Zephyrian fleet, once so organized and powerful, was now scattered and confused. More than 70% of their vessels were either destroyed or disabled. Signal all ships, she ordered. Begin final phase operations. Across the asteroid field, remaining human vessels began moving toward specific positions. They had been preparing for this moment for months, and every crew member knew exactly what to do. The humans weren't just reacting to what the aliens did. They were 3 steps ahead, leading the enemy through a carefully planned sequence of defeats. General Vexeter watched helplessly as his remaining ships were picked off one by one. Each vessel that moved was led into another trap. Each group that tried to coordinate was separated and destroyed. How many ships do we have left? He asked, though he dreaded the answer. Less than 200, sir, and most of those are damaged. 200 ships out of 1,800 vessels destroyed or captured by just 12 human ships. This is impossible, Vexar whispered. No one defeats the hegemony like this. Sir, the communication officer said. Hesitantly, we're receiving another transmission from the human captain. Put her through. Captain Chen appeared on the screen once more, but this time something was different about her expression. She looked almost sad. General Vexar, she said quietly, I want you to understand something. We didn't want this fight. We're just people trying to build a new home among the stars. Then why? Vexter asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why are you destroying us so completely? Because you came here with 1,000,000 soldiers to enslave or kill 50,000 civilians. Because you've done this to dozens of other worlds, and because someone has to show the galaxy that bullies can be stopped. The general stared at her for a long moment. How did 12 ships defeat 1,000? Sarah's expression softened slightly. You want to know the real difference between your people and mine, General? When one of your ships loses contact with command, it becomes helpless. When one of our ships is on its own, it becomes more dangerous. I don't understand. Every human on these ships can think, plan, and adapt independently. They don't need orders from me to know what to do, but your soldiers have been trained to follow commands, not to think for themselves. Vexar realized she was right. His crews were waiting for orders while hers were already executing new plans. This battle is over, General, Captain Chen said gently. Surrender now and no more of your people need to die. General Vexar looked around his bridge at his remaining officers. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders they knew would never come. For the first time in his long career, he had no idea what those orders should be. The bridge of the Zafran flagship was silent, except for the quiet hum of damaged systems trying to repair themselves. General Vexter sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed the complete destruction of his fleet. Out of 1,000 ships, only 97 were still capable of fighting. The rest were either destroyed, disabled, or floating powerless in space. His million soldiers had been reduced to fewer than 100,000, and most of those were trapped on ships that could barely function. Sir, Commander Z said quietly, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're offering medical assistance to our damaged ships. Vexeter looked up in surprise. Medical assistance to their enemies? Yes, sir. They say any ship that needs help with life support or medical emergencies should signal them immediately. The general's mind struggled to understand this. In 2 centuries of warfare, he had never heard of an enemy offering to help wounded foes during a battle. Are they trying to trick us somehow? I don't think so, sir. 3 of our ships have already accepted their help. The humans sent medical supplies and repair teams. They're actually saving our people's lives. Vexar stared at the screen, showing the positions of both fleets. Human ships were moving between the wreckage, offering assistance to anyone who needed it. They weren't attacking the remaining Zahirian vessels. They were helping them. I don't understand these humans, he said. Finally, sir, the communication officer interrupted. Captain Chen is requesting to speak with you again. Put her through. Captain Sarah Chen appeared on the screen. She looked tired but calm. Behind her, Vexar could see her crew continuing to work at their stations. General, she said simply, it's time to end this. Vizar looked around his bridge one more time, then back at the human captain. What are your terms? Surrender your remaining ships and weapons. Your crews will be treated as prisoners of war according to human law. That means medical care, proper food, and safe living conditions until we can arrange to send you home. Home? Vexar was confused. You're not planning to execute us? Sarah looked genuinely surprised by the question. Execute you, General? We're not monsters. You came here as invaders. Yes, but your crews were following orders. Why would we kill them for that? Because that's what conquerors do. The strong destroy the weak. Maybe that's how the hegemony does things, Sarah said gently, but that's not how humans do things. We believe that even our enemies deserve basic dignity and respect. Vexar felt something shift inside his mind. In all his years of conquest, he had never considered that there might be other ways to treat defeated enemies. I have one question, he said slowly. How did 12 ships defeat my entire fleet? Sarah was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. You want the tactical explanation or the real explanation? Both. Tactically, we studied your methods for months. We Learn that your people always fight the same way, use the same formations, follow the same patterns, so we prepared traps specifically designed to turn your strengths into weaknesses, and the real explanation. Your people fight to conquer, our people fight to protect. When you're fighting to enslave others, you're fighting for greed and power. When you're fighting to protect your home and family, you're fighting for something much more powerful. Vexeter thought about this. He had spent his entire career fighting for the glory of the hegemony, for the expansion of their empire, but these humans were fighting for something different entirely. There's something else, Sarah continued. Your soldiers are trained to follow orders without question. Ours are trained to think for themselves. In a battle like this, where things change quickly, that makes all the difference. You're saying our discipline was our weakness. I'm saying that blind obedience and true discipline are two different things. Our crews follow orders because they understand why those orders make sense. Your crews follow orders because they're afraid not to. General Vexar absorbed this information slowly. Everything he had believed about warfare, about strength and power, was being challenged by this human captain. I surrender, he said finally. My remaining ships will stand down. Thank you, General. Your decision will save a lot of lives. Over the next several hours, Zephyrian ships throughout the asteroid field began powering down their weapons and surrendering to human forces. Medical teams from the human fleet worked alongside alien crews to treat the wounded and repair damaged life support systems. Vexar found himself aboard the Defiance, sitting in what the humans called a conference room. It was smaller and simpler than anything on his old flagship, but somehow more comfortable. Captain Chen sat across from him, along with Dr. Patel and Lieutenant Martinez. They had brought him food that his species could eat and made sure he was treated with respect, despite being a prisoner. General Sarah said, I need to ask you about something important. The hegemony has conquered dozens of worlds. What happens to those people now? What do you mean? When word of this battle spread, those conquered species are going to know that the hegemony can be defeated. They might start asking for their freedom back. Vexeter hadn't thought about this. For the first time, he considered what this defeat might mean for the rest of the galaxy. The hegemony's power comes from fear. He realized, if that fear is gone, exactly, other species might start fighting back, and they'll use the same tactics we used, studying your weaknesses, adapting to your methods, fighting smarter instead of just fighting harder. The general looked out the window at the wreckage of his fleet floating in space. Each destroyed ship represented the end of the hegemony's reputation for invincibility. You've started something that will spread across the galaxy, he said quietly. We hope so, Sarah replied. Every species deserves the right to be free. The strong shouldn't rule the weak just because they can. Dr. Patel leaned forward. General, we've been studying your people's history. The hegemony wasn't always an empire, was it? Vexeter was surprised by the question. No. Long ago we were just one species among many. We built our strength to defend ourselves from other threats, and somewhere along the way, defense became conquest. Yes, he admitted, we told ourselves that controlling other species was the only way to stay safe, But I think we forgot why we started fighting in the first place. Lieutenant Martinez spoke up. It's not too late to change. Your people could choose a different path. After this defeat, the hegemony leadership will never accept that. Maybe not, Sarah said, but you could, and maybe others would follow your example. Vexeter thought about this for a long time. He had spent 2 centuries serving an empire built on fear and domination. But these humans had shown him that there were other ways to be strong. What will you do with me? He asked. We're going to send you home along with all your surviving crews, but we hope you'll carry a message back to your people. What message? That the age of conquest is over. The galaxy is full of species that are smart, creative, and brave. They won't stay conquered forever. The hegemony can either learn to live peacefully with others, or it can face more defeats like this one. General Vexar nodded slowly. He understood now why the human captain had been so confident from the beginning. She wasn't just fighting one battle, she was fighting for an idea that would spread across the stars. 3 weeks later, Vexar stood on the bridge of a small transport ship, watching his home system grow larger in the view screen. Behind him were the surviving members of his fleet, all returning home with stories of impossible defeat and unexpected mercy. He thought about Captain Chen's final words to him. Strength isn't about how many people you can conquer, General. It's about how many people you can protect. When they reached home, there would be trials and investigations. The hegemony leadership would demand answers for the greatest military disaster in their history. Some would call for revenge, others would call for Vexar's execution, but the general had decided what he would tell them. He would tell them about 12 human ships that defeated 1,000. He would tell them about enemies who offered medical aid to the wounded. He would tell them about a species that fought not for conquest but for freedom. And maybe, just maybe, he would convince some of his people that there was a better way to live among the stars. Behind him in space, the human colony continued to grow. Word of the battle was already spreading to other systems, carried by traders and travelers across the galaxy. Conquered species were beginning to ask dangerous questions about their hegemony rulers. Captain Sarah Chen had been right about one thing. The humans had indeed provided 1,000,000 targets for the Zahirian fleet. But they had also provided the galaxy with something much more valuable: hope.